Got you, George. Job you guys tell me these things, isn't it? Hear him now. You should be able to hear him now. Yeah. It's hilarious. For telling me, guys, because I had my game audio off for the whole entirety of last stream and no one told me. So I was just sitting there like no one could hear the game for like 4 hours, man. Just check on George's chat to see if he's lagging. Make sure to like the stream if you don't mind. I'm going to begin shortly. I might start doing movie nights as part of our podcast series because when we can't get people on and we don't fancy talking random stuff, it gives us like a subject to focus on, and it's fun, to go back and watch films. That's what we're doing. George just wants to know if his stream's working, guys. Let's start. Let's do it, man. Link to him. You should just search Ravy Grays 12 and he'll come up. But I normally plug him in the Fortnite stream. Oh, that's an old comment, George, I think.
Nope, there we go. I had my mic muted. We good.
Your mute mic in. You just said you had your mute mic in, George.
Well,
I
muted my mic. Hopefully the balance is fine.
How long have we been streaming? We haven't done anything yet. Let's go.
About 2 minutes, I think.
There we go. Nice one now. Thanks, bro. Done by me. That was a collaborative.
It was a half and half. Yeah.
All right, do it. Get going. So, tell us about the first scenes of Raiders of the Lost Ark. George done it scene by scene. I've just,
Well, I've not done
done
scene
some
by scene,
research.
I've done stuff.
Panda. Just want to say, so we start off in like the forest, don't we?
Jungle, yeah.
Apparently,
Jungle.
this was inspired by Steven Spielberg's first movies, because I think it is some like jungle movies, which we'll get into later with all these cool facts. I just wanted to point it out. I can't help but think at the start it reminded me of Endor in Star Wars. Is it Endor with the Wookiees?
Yeah,
Wookiees.
Wookiees, man.
Not
Double O, it's a Wook.
So even the Wookiees, what am I called now?
You're on about the
That's the one. Then, oh man, just seeing the whip, like the dark shadows of Indy, that was just so perfect, man. I bet that was in the trailer. It must have been.
It must have been. I mean,
it's just iconic, man.
At the start, like, you don't get introduced to the character, so you go into this movie blind, really. Like, apart from the trailer stuff or whatever they sent in like the early doors of the film, you see the poster.
Because it keeps you like, it makes you interested, doesn't it? It gets you into the character.
It drops you. Yeah, exactly. Well, it's not even just that. It drops you directly into the jungle with the straight after the Paramount logo like merges into the scene. You're straight in with.
It does remind you of early filmmaking, doesn't it? It's like like that jungle scene has a resemblance to a lot of old movies.
So the reason why you think it looks so similar is not only because it's George Lucas, but it's the same effects company. Yeah, it's Spielberg, it's Lucasfilms, and it's Industrial Light
I read
Magic.
that one of the Lucasfilm assistants helped on the special effects. Did you know that, George? And then we get into like the cave scenes, don't we? Where he's going to get the skull or the gold head. And I just want to say, like, loads of spiders all over him. He doesn't even flinch, man.
And the one that I watched...
There's only one thing he's afraid of, and that's snakes. But spiders, he's just like, he just shoves them off.
So the thing is, they're all real spiders, right? All of them are real. Or, like, I read that they were... yeah. Every animal in it is real, apart from a couple of the snakes.
He must have been, like, really comfortable with them animals. He must have spent a lot of time around.
Yeah, well, the thing is, they didn't move until they brought in a female tarantula. Like, they just sat on their backs until, like, out of shot.
I didn't read that. I didn't read
a female tarantula coming. No, I didn't either. So at the start, thrown into the jungle. That's brilliant filmmaking. Once we move into the thing, they don't really say much in English.
The blood and guts in this movie. It's so good. It's like comical, man, and I just love the way it is.
So the thing is, I know which scene you're on about. You're on about the end scene, right?
In the first scene where the guy like runs off with the statue, and then he gets hit by the spike and it's all bleeding down his face, just like red sauce, man, like ketchup. But like the thing is, you kind of wanted him to die because he just betrayed Indy and left him.
After he saved him, how many times? Like you knew it was gonna happen. You have no idea.
The thing is, if he would have escaped with that statue, he would have ran into the French guy, and then Indy. I would have been safe anyway. He got away, but it would have saved Indy some time anyway in the end.
Yeah, exactly.
I just want to say one thing we've not touched on is the boulder scene, George.
Oh yeah, well, we can talk about that. It's the most iconic. It's parodied in The Simpsons, parodied in everything else.
Bandicoot.
Yeah, exactly. So it's a fiberglass mold. And he had to film...
What was it? Like the designer turned up with a 22-foot mold of a fiberglass boulder, and then Spielberg was like, "Oh, I like this. I want a 50-foot one."
So not only that, but the sound came from a Honda Civic rolling across some gravel. The sound design on this is so good.
That is the most iconic. One of the most iconic indie moments.
He had to run that scene 10 times. For each individual camera angle was reset. And...
I reckon if he would have actually got crushed by that, if it would have went over him, he would have actually died. Because you're talking 50 feet worth of fiberglass.
It wouldn't have hurt. Well, I mean, guys, this is not PG-13. Here it is it? What?
It should be PG, but I just
did
couldn't
you
think
swear
of the
or
right
have I
word.
one?
I did swear.
Oh, we said
I
a swear word
once, but I couldn't think of the right word.
So
It's After Dark, should not.
No, it's not. So the Boulder, most parodied scene. So, but just before he or just after that, sorry. You see, like
Talk about the skeleton, George. But I was going to touch on this.
That
see the
skeleton is
prosthetics
horrifying.
on the skeleton with the
it's
googly
horrifying,
eyes,
isn't
man.
it? I know.
It's terrifying, man. Like the people who made this prosthetics on this,
it's ILM.
It's done a really good job. And
ILM.
What we're talking like 1980 something.
80. The first Indiana Jones was 80. I don't know. Well, the first Star Wars was 77, wasn't it? So it's 80. It's around
81.
Early. Yeah, 81. 81.
Around that point.
Because it was early 80s.
Another thing that we've missed out, if we're going in order, the music is so freaking on point. How's the theme tune, guys? Like,
the fact that you can't remember.
Like everybody knows that, you know. And I couldn't remember for a second then, but I just started singing, like humming it, and it come to me. It's how iconic it is. It's like
the thing about that, it's an actual brass band. I think it's the symphony orchestra, British Symphony Orchestra, something like that.
I think it is the same people who did the Star Wars theme, isn't it?
Well, the entire So I'm gonna come to ILM because I'm gonna mention these a lot. Industrial Light and Magic.
Basically, couldn't have picked a better mishmash of people to make a film. Like you got George Lucas, you got Steven Spielberg.
This man be interrupting. No, ILM, Industrial Light and Magic. It's the company that did the prosthetics and all that, and all the thing. But they started off with Star Wars. I've got a list of films, and tell me if you recognise these. Star Wars, Raiders of the Lost Ark.
That's what we do the podcast on, so I don't know why you put that one in there.
Oh, because I've written it in order, the ones they did. So they did... They're the effects company. So they did Star Wars New Hope, and then Empire Strikes Back. Then they moved on to do Raiders of the Lost Ark. Then Dragon Slayer. I don't know what that is. Then they did Star Trek 2, and then Return of the Jedi, and then Temple of Doom.
Talking music or effects?
Effects. This is the effects company.
Yeah.
Now, this same effects company...
music.
This same effects company did E.T., Back to the Future, Who Framed Roger Rabbit, Jurassic Park, the classic, Forrest Gump.
I think I've seen like a documentary on these guys who done this. I think they also did Frankenstein as well. I'm not thinking of the right people.
They did Jumanji.
He started making effects like when he was in high school and he was really young, and then George Lucas hired him for Star Wars and changed everything.
Then they also did. Yeah, they also did The Mask, Men in Black, The Mummy, Pirates of the Caribbean, and almost every Marvel film, and that all started with Star Wars. This is the company.
It is really hard to find companies that do like really good legit effects, especially back in that day.
They created the company. I know that ILM had people like Adam Savage from MythBusters, and they were prop designers for this company. So if you ever watch any of like tested videos or some of MythBusters, he talks a lot about ILM and the things that he learned at ILM. So we've got the background of ILM side.
I wrote this down. This is the first, in my opinion, one of the first blockbuster treasure movies that actually worked.
Yeah,
in my opinion. I mean, there's classic ones, but how many of them do we actually remember? Like, this always sticks in your head. Like, everybody knows Indiana Jones. It's still a cult classic to this day. And think of all the things that have been based on this character. Tomb Raider, Nathan Drake. They all follow in the footsteps of Indiana Jones.
Indiana Jones was the person that pushed the idea that words are hard. Archaeology.
Archaeology. I can't say.
No, exactly.
You started me off there, George. Archaeology, yeah.
Is a cool thing to do because before this, it was seen as like an old man thing, right? It was old men digging about in a field.
Action.
To make that into an action hero, based off of a Disney comic book, as well as bits and pieces from other films, is incredible. Like, the fact that they push that narrative so well. Like, the thing about Spielberg, he never does storyboards. And in this film, he did 4 storyboard panels, and that is the most he's done for every any movie he's done.
I just want to point this out, guys. If you look at these pictures, Indiana Jones was based on this picture in the right-hand corner.
It's the concept art.
So that's what George Lucas seen. I literally seen that picture. It was a painting, George, on the wall somewhere, and I think it was based on like a comic book. He'd seen that, and then he based Indiana Jones on it. He based the whole character on that, which I think is just such a cool thing.
So,
like, you wouldn't expect.
While we're talking about Spielberg, we can talk about Lucas as well, because they were on a holiday together when they basically decided to do this. It was the break from Star Wars, the second one, Empire. Yeah, Empire Strikes Back. They were on a break in, like, they went on holiday together, and they didn't go on holiday together, but they ended up in a. I can't remember the exact story, but.
Any movies have they made together to this day? Do they still make movies together, or was this just the one time that it happened? Is it just Indy that they worked on collaboratively?
E.T. I think.
Often E.T. as well.
I think so, yeah, because ILM is a.
They work on Howard the Duck movie, or
Who Framed Roger Rabbit? I think is the one you're thinking of.
No, because Howard the Duck wasn't that part of Star Wars or something? I got mixed up here.
I don't know, man. It's confusing. It's all kind of confusing.
We get back into the story.
Yeah. Okay.
So I've got a lot of different things wrote down. I put when he drops the coins, and that goes down. You're like, oh crap, it's going down now, and then everything just falls apart. Once again, that's another common movie trope that we always see today.
You do realise that was sand, right?
You see it in the
first. So good at building tension.
You see it in
coins.
No, you see it in the first shot. He takes sand and puts it in a bag, and that is like the precursor to all of it. So, like, as he walked into the temple, there's like a bag. As he's talking to the man, he's like,
you said on Facebook, like, I don't know what to replace the coins with or something, and that's why it stuck into my head. So it's actually got it wrong, and they're pointing out.
No. I never said coins. I said idol. Is what I've said. So. After your man steals the gold idol and runs out and gets speared, our hero, Mr. Indiana Jones himself, eventually leaves it.
We're talking about like references to other characters and like influences. Kept thinking to myself, like when Indiana Jones was running away in those first scenes, I just kept thinking of, is it Chris O'Connell in The Mummy?
That's after.
Kept thinking of that.
That is after
the main character in The Mummy.
The Mummy is a long time after.
Of Indiana Jones so much.
Yeah, I know what you mean. It's the same running style, right? It's the same.
The way
they were based off it as well.
Kind of way the character acts.
That character was based off it.
And also the scenes in the desert and everything like that. Like, it just speaks Mummy, doesn't it? But obviously, Indiana Jones come way before it.
Yeah, about 10, 20 years.
I kept thinking that. That might be another one we might have to do sometime, The Mummy.
So, the idol gets stolen by Belloc. His name is French. He is French. And that is the end of the jungle scene, apart from, well, I mean, it's not. When he's running away from the indigenous people who are sparing him. And trying to, like
think about that guy. He's like, he's a villain, but he tries to turn Indy to the dark side, doesn't he?
Yeah, it's early, like. Well, I mean, I guess they based it off.
He won't kill, but you so wanted him to die. So the ending. I kind of, I was like, yes.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
We're not going to get into that now.
But we will talk about the effects of that scene, because I specifically, I looked into how they did that, and it's so cool.
It's a crazy scene.
After he flies away and saves the day by escaping. And he goes back to America, and this is where you like see him, and he's like, which is supposed to be like his like description scene, right, where you get introduced to him, who he is really.
That makes so much like sense as a like backstory to the character. Yeah. I wrote down that I love like him being a professor is so perfect because that shows why he would be interested in archaeology in the first place because he's been researching this stuff and he knows his stuff.
In the last film, when they do like the flashback to Sean Connery,
so much sense.
Yeah, it completely makes sense. And you see that he's a hit with the ladies.
Then he's talking about it on the board, and he's like, "Oh, I had that statue in my hand." He's like, "I've been there, done that."
Yeah, he's like, he would have been, and then he pulls out more relics from his pockets, like, haha.
And then he's like, "Oh, the museum will definitely buy them. No worries."
No questions asked. Like, it's very clear he's breaking the rules because he mentions
he tricks is it the FBI that come in or like some kind of organisation. They want to recover the statue from they want to in the Lost Ark, don't they? They want to find the Lost Ark, but he kind of tricks him into it, I think.
Yeah,
into giving him the job.
That's Brody. Brody does that, and he makes them pay in what he calls handsomely. So he then, they do like the description scene about what the Ark is.
It just got me so interested in the part when they were talking about the Ark and stuff because a lot of movies normally miss that stuff out. They just expect you to know it, and you have to kind of do the research yourself. Well, they already did it for you, and like all these props, like the staff around and stuff, like are always used in like games like Assassin's Creed, and they've all got these like really cool references in like today.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
but already it's like so interesting. I also found out it's set in the 1936.
Yeah, just after
movie set in 1936.
Start of World War II.
But at first, I was thinking like it's an 80s movie; it would be set in the 80s. But then I got further into it, and I was like, no, we got Nazis. There's a war going on. It's 1936.
Mm-hmm.
After I did a bit more digging.
Yeah, it's a really interesting time zone to base it on. And I've gone from yours. Goodbye. I've just gone to grey square.
Oh, yeah, sorry. It's because I moved my mouse. I've just got you I'm just hovering over the Discord so it pops up.
Yeah. Before we go on, we're just going to say this. We really like this film.
I really love this film.
It's the first film where
I left.
So when I was younger, this is the first film that made me excited. And when you leave the room, you want to pretend to be that character. That sort of.
My got me into a lot of these films, and it's passed down from generation, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. This film made me want. It gave me the hero complex, right? So you want to be Indiana Jones. You want to be having these things, doing these things, because they all seem so real.
That DVD one. We might have a couple more to get through. We might actually discuss number 5 as well. I'll try and do the watch party thing next time.
Yeah, that'd be interesting because we can pause it. We can pause and talk about it. So we
can pause and discuss.
He takes a plane,
like a proper podcast.
Yeah, proper one. Yeah, he takes a plane to Nepal to meet Marion, who have had a thing.
He affectionately calls
Marion.
I've got a fact about Marion. Steven Spielberg's wife was supposed to play that character. That's who he envisioned to play the role. Also, I wrote down, touching on Indiana Jones and his character, the whip was a really interesting choice, wasn't it?
Yeah, because it's not.
It doesn't really kill. It's not really like a.
But it's like a Batman utilitarian thing, right? Because you can use it to attack or defend or go places.
A lot of the time, I've seen him whips, and he just whips to get the enemies out of the way. Then he'll run. He won't kill unless he has to, and that's the perfect hero, isn't it? Only kill in self-defense. The whip is actually the perfect weapon.
We talk about the self-defense thing later on. We'll come to when he's in Cairo and he does the scene with the sword, but that's not for a little bit.
Yeah, that's so funny. That wasn't meant to happen, was it? No. I've also researched that.
So he's
so
in.
excited. We want to talk about these things now.
I know. So he goes
it's like
to.
Doctor Who, though, isn't it? It's like in Doctor Who, he has a screwdriver and it doesn't harm, it doesn't kill, it just opens doors. It's like that kind of thing because the whip could really hurt someone with it, but it's mainly just going to leave like a scratch rather than a bullet wound.
Yeah, and I mean, unless they slow bleed out, you're not going to die from it. So,
exactly.
Marion has the headpiece of the staff, which is like the MacGuffin.
Can we just say we're in Nepal now?
Oh yeah, we're in Nepal. So this is like the MacGuffin we need to push the plot forward. So it's pushing and pushing and pushing to when we finally get to Egypt. But in the process of getting the staff, I know, it's so funny, right?
Drinking where he's drinking and you're like, which one of them's gonna fall? And then he takes the last sip, and you think, oh man, he's beaten this drinking contest. And they just go, it falls into everyone.
Hey Tara, how you doing, man?
The MacGuffin, the gold chain. I wrote down for this when she puts it on the chair.
That's when you know. Yeah, that's when you know.
A backstory about Marion and what how they used to be together, about her dad and stuff. And then he leaves.
While we're on this bit, in what I read, she was only 15 when they had their thing, which is weird.
So maybe that's why he left then.
Yeah.
He did say he knew it was wrong, so that kind of that's a bit sus. Like if you knew that in the film, and they referenced it in the film, it wouldn't really make sense. But then again,
they only added it in. They only added it in as like a nod to like a backstory. That is the only reason why. It was George Lucas that wanted to build like a background.
Just some weird stuff though. Sometimes, doesn't he? Like
George Lucas is a fucking.
Luke and Leia being brother and sister, but almost having a romance. So you can see like the connection. Like George Lucas likes to push the boundaries a bit.
Yeah,
he's weird stuff.
He's a strange man.
She left that gold chain on the desk or the counter.
That's when you know it's gonna go wrong from that point, right?
They walk in. I was like, oh god. She's trying to draw him away. Like, guys, come over here for a drink. I was like, oh man, they're just going to kill her and take the chain. That's going to be the end of the film.
Yeah, exactly. That would be such a strange end, wouldn't it? Just give me the necklace.
Comes and the music comes and that's just so good, man.
And then everything goes to shit. The bar starts burning down because of the poker. And then...
so this scene when that guy with the glasses picks up the chain and goes, and runs into the snow.
Yeah, that's like the comedic like balance, right? It's got to be a balance from a horror and
stuff is so well though, because like the comedic stuff is like does make you laugh because it's like kind of cheesy comedic.
Yeah.
Then the film's like quite serious in other areas, so it does balance out really well.
So it burns into he gets like an impression of the medallion into his hand, and that is how they, in the future, they find the place. But Indy goes to Egypt, in brackets Cairo. Indy goes to Cairo.
I'm letting you do a bit of talking for a bit, George. Well, I keep interrupting you.
Yeah, you blowing do, man. You always do. It's a hell of an iron.
It's hard because like all these things, all these thoughts, man, just keep popping in my head, and I'm like, if I don't cover it, we're gonna skip it.
So while they're in Cairo, they meet a monkey.
I was gonna say that I wrote monkey down because I knew he was gonna point
monkey. It out. They meet a monkey.
I want to be monkey. You literally got it like on your face, man.
So that monkey is one of my favourite like side characters.
Then he ratted him out, and then he just keeps like it's basically like a little monkey spy.
Mm-hmm. Oh. And then so there's like a couple of scenes about talking to Balak and stuff, and then he thinks Marion's dead because the car explodes.
I'll just say, the weapon where she's got the pan.
I find that really funny as well. That's like pre-PUBG. That's so good.
Action figure of Indiana Jones, and she had the pan and she had the necklace. Yeah, it just reminded me of that. Like I see it. We think Marion's dead, and then he's like sitting at the bar drinking a whiskey, and the monkey's just lying all over him, man.
But before this, what I've missed out on is that the sword scene, right? We wanted to talk about this. So there was supposed to be
there
was supposed to be a full fight between them. It was choreographed and everything. But
it was
Harrison
like,
Ford,
crap, he's got a machete.
Yeah, Harrison Ford was ill, wasn't he? He had like food poisoning or something, and he just couldn't be bothered to do it.
That so works so well because it's such an anticlimax. Like you expect this big fight and it's like bam.
It just like pulls out his pistol. Yeah, and then he just moves on. Like that is one of my favourite scenes.
Makes so much sense. Like you wouldn't have a massive sword fight. Like who does that? Like in every film, they have to. It's like, oh, put your guns down, have a fight. It's just like I can't be bothered. I'm just gonna,
exactly whips out. So, the monkey dies. Sad times.
Does a monkey die?
Poisoned dates. Air quotes.
I don't remember
bad dates. You don't remember the entire scene where there's a dead monkey on the floor, man.
But I really like that monkey because he was a bit sly. He was just
sly
listening
monkey.
To his owner, really.
Yeah.
He almost led Marion to death, and he still stuck around in there, knowing that she might be dead. But then again, we find out later in the film, she wasn't dead.
Yep. So this is where he goes to Tanis. So he goes to like this dig site, which just outside of Cairo. To
one thing we not mentioned before we get onto that, the fact that what's his name again? The French guy.
Balak.
Yeah, so Balak tries to turn him into the dark side, just like in Star Wars, where you got like Anakin.
Mm-hmm.
Got a scene when he's like, "Oh, we could have it all. We could have all the money. Come with me, help me out, and we'll share the profits." And then he's like, "No, never." And then the kids just drag him out of there before he has a fight. I just found that scene like really, really good because you're like, will Indy do it? Will he turn to the dark side? And then you're like, you trust the character then because you're like, yeah, he's not just about the money.
So this entire next scene about the dig is a throwback to the then kind of big news. I mean, 1922, really early, is when Tutankhamun's tomb was dug up by Howard Carter. So that had a lot of input into the curses and that kind of, especially in media, and that kind of ran until the late 80s, that whole curse of Tutankhamun's tomb, and that influenced the Mummy as well, that entire curse.
But Indy says, doesn't he, early on in the film, he's like, I don't care about ghosts and ghouls.
I don't believe in.
But I wonder how he would think at the end of the film. I need to go back and watch the others, so I know it changed him with what happened.
It did change him because what I didn't like about Crystal Skull was how
they did seen everyone despair.
No, exactly. They would have just seen. Yeah, Alfie Damon's in the Blackboard Terror. He donated to me.
I'm not reading the chat, guys. We're trying to talk because people are going to rewatch this, in years to come, and they're going to be like, "Who's Alfie M's? Who's this guy?" So we're trying to keep it.
So he breaks into what they called the map room, which is a scale model of the city, and it's a really interesting thing because that is based off DuckTales.
Try and get
that is based off a DuckTale. Well, no, not DuckTales. Sorry, Scrooge McDuck. They have. This is the comic book I was talking about.
That scene was quite good, to be honest. You can tell that they're models.
They're supposed to be models, though. It's supposed to be a scale. So the that entire scene, and as well as most of the traps in the previous Temple Run kind of thing, was pretty much directly taken from DuckTales. No, not DuckTales. Sorry, Scrooge McDuck.
When he's in there. In the tomb, he doesn't have the staff, does he? He doesn't have the staff of Ra. I think he made it with a stick, didn't he?
Yeah, no, he had a stick. You could see him walking in. You could see him walking in with a stick.
So
he was using it as a walking stick.
He made a stick in there. It was just like, oh, how tall is the staff of Ra? And he builds his own stick and attaches the medallion to it.
Mm-hmm.
So he doesn't even need the staff. He just uses his own ingenuity. And when he snaps it, I was like, what's he just done? I was like, isn't that the staff of Ra? He's just broke in half. And I'm like, no, that's wood.
Yeah,
What?
so the entire it was supposed to just be a wood thing, right? And the dimensions that the staff needs to be are written on the medallion, which is like the most important part. Because with history, wood, leather, sort of natural materials all rot away. So the fact that they then went, let's write on the medallion the dimensions. But this is like the important bit. The dimensions were on both sides of the medallion. Because as we find out previous to this, they're digging in the wrong place because they've only got half of the dimensions from... I think his name is... I don't know if I wrote his name down.
The guy with the glasses.
The German guy. Yeah, he only has... Because it burnt into his hand, so he uses that as...
Such a weirdo, that guy in this film. Like, in the first few scenes, I was like, that guy is so weird, man.
So...
Some of the enemies...
Do you know why?
Like, I never think about it.
They based it off...
Heinrich like shot
Himmler. They based it off Himmler. Do you know the SS leader who was like in charge of like the shock troopers and stuff? It's German history. It's dark and horrible.
You know, when he gets the sunbeam and trying to find the location, I just thought it was so funny how it happened to land right slap bang in the middle.
Dead center,
it was
yeah.
This like perfect mini like pyramid. Like, of course it's going to be there.
Yeah, I know. I mean, they could easily.
Is it going to be at the top?
All they did by having the
thing.
staff of exactly. I know the thing they did by having the staff was made the dig smaller. Like without it, they could have just dug up the entire of Tanis and they would have found it eventually. But they were just saving money.
Exactly. They had like 20,000 men. I don't know how many men they had, but they had a lot of men there. They could have just literally dug the whole place up. I find it funny as well because none of those troops were actually doing anything. They're just sitting there eating their lunch.
Sitting around eating their lunch.
And Indy's managed to walk around the back of them. He's literally the master of disguise as well. I need to say this because about 5 times in this film,
all he does is cover his chin, and suddenly it's not Indy anymore.
And that later scene where he's trying on the
shirt,
the German uniform, and it doesn't. The guy comes over and he just like knocks that one out and then dresses up as him. Oh, man, he's just the master of disguise. But I just found that so funny, man. Just sneak around all the tents, like with it, like there's like 2,000 German troops, and he's just like digging at the back, right at the back of them. No one notices all night, really.
So after they get like put into like what they call is the Well of Souls, so they find the place, and there's just snakes everywhere. Indy's only hate is snakes. We haven't skipped.
I've said this earlier, but there's one point that we miss where we find Mary in the tent.
That's after.
Just before he explores.
Oh no, that is before. Sorry, that is bad.
Before,
yeah, it's before. Yeah, it's mad.
Just before he explores the tomb with the snakes, and when he finds the ark, we find out that Mary's actually tied up and still alive. And I found this quite funny because he leaves her there. He's like, "I'm not going to ruin my plan." He just runs off, and she's so annoyed about it.
But the thing is, that makes total sense.
She's on, like, talking to Belak.
That makes total sense though, because if she disappeared, they're gonna start combing the place.
Yeah, they would have all him out. Yeah, and he kind of knew that like Belak was being quite nice to her. Like he didn't kill her, he tied her up. He's not really he's more tactical, isn't he? Like he tends to keep her as a prisoner.
So he's an anti-hero kind of thing. He's not a villain. He's just not the character we're supposed to be.
He won't kill someone. He'd rather get someone else to do it.
He's not the character we're supposed to relate to.
Another funny thing that I wrote down is the fact that Mary just kept finding dresses everywhere in the film. Like first time she's in that tent, she's like, "Oh, a woman must have been here before. There's a dress in a box." No, Bella gave her that, didn't he?
Yeah, the bit you're on about is, why are you going to unsubscribe? I really don't care. Bye, Marcus.
My chat, or
my chat. Because he wants a mod, and I've just... Yeah, we don't care. You're not getting mod.
So yeah, she just keeps finding dresses, and I found that really funny because, like, you know, that's kind of like, just like the writers like saying like we need something to get the guys interested in the film.
Exactly.
And they're like, oh, it's just lazy writing because it's just like, oh, here's a nice dress.
I mean, the thing is,
he has a crush on her.
They're absolutely like justified things as well, like. In like you're the one you got confused with was the pirate ship, right?
As well, and she was like, "Oh, a woman must have been here before. She's got this really nice silk dress on." That's the second time in the film that she's managed to find a dress.
It's because they're pirates.
Wherever she's been.
Pirates sell women apparently in this universe.
That's the bit that I point out, rather than her, picking up the knife and almost stabbing Belak. I find it funny that she keeps finding dresses everywhere.
So she gets thrown into the tomb with Indy. After this is after they found the Ark and they've started moving it about. They take it to the surface.
They had 2,000 snakes, didn't they, on the first?
And it wasn't enough.
Production.
And it wasn't enough.
The first run of production, but the first day of shooting, yeah. And Steven Spielberg said, this isn't enough snakes.
We need more snakes.
7,000.
More snakes stat.
Next 2 days later, they turned up with 10,000 snakes.
And that still wasn't enough. Still not enough. So he cut up some hose and threw them in the back. As well as the snakes, one of the production staff got bit on the finger by it was a python or an adder or something. It was a poisonous one, but not too bad. So he tells the stagehand to grab the snake's tail and do that so that it shocks the snake into letting go of his finger. So that it unclamps from his finger. He pulls the finger out and then he goes to hospital afterwards. Which is really cool.
But again, Harrison Ford doesn't flinch.
Never has done.
Man.
So there is a pane of glass.
We've been filming that.
No, there's a pane of glass in front of them. Yeah, especially with the King Cobra.
You can't see it though, can you?
No, it's camera magicry. They were glad that they did that because the King Cobra spat venom at Harrison Ford. But because of the pane of glass, it just hit the glass instead. So, they delayed production by a day because the daughter of Stanley Kubrick came to stop by, as you do, and she called the RSPCA because she felt like they weren't looking after the snakes well enough, but that only delayed them by a day. Also, while we're talking about snakes,
do things like that these days. If you put an actor in that position, they probably wouldn't do it. Actors,
while we're talking about snakes, one snake killed another snake, and that is the only damage they did. And it was an adder killed a cobra, or a cobra killed an adder.
More fatalities on the bloody I'm a Celebrity. These days in TV, they use snakes like I'm a Celebrity. They use them all the time, don't they? It's
most of them are defanged. They're defanged, or they're not poisonous. They'll be constrictors. Which is still dangerous, don't get me wrong. A boa constrictor can still...
Did you know, this is a fact for later, but did you know that Tom Selleck from Magnum P.I. was supposed to play Indiana Jones?
Yeah, and the only reason he didn't was because he was doing something else at the time.
Doing Magnum P.I. He literally had the role and turned it down. What's more known today, though, Magnum P.I. or Indiana Jones?
Exactly. I mean, and not only that, the guy that was originally supposed to be the German turned that down because he felt like the script was badly written, and then went on to star in a film about a giant snake.
I don't want to be that guy in the film. I wouldn't want to be the bad guys.
I mean, yeah.
They're just playing really people.
What we'll come to later is 3 of the Germans are Harrison Ford's body doubles that he knocks out in the vehicle scene. So they're stuck in the Well of Souls. We're still in the Well of Souls.
So the horrifying snake scenes that we haven't mentioned before you get into the Well of Souls. There's this huge snake coming out of this skull's mouth, man.
I know that. That was such a nice touch. That was just put
they didn't have to add that, but they did.
The skull was bad enough, but the snake coming out of the mouth, you don't see it leave the mouth. Hi Ducky, hey Jonathan. You don't see it. The snakes on the
floor was bad enough, and the lighting, you had this blue lighting tint to the black snakes, it was perfectly set up, you're on the edge of your seat. Oh god, we know already earlier on in the film that Indy hates snakes. And we see this scene, and there's just a huge, there must be a python coming out of that skull there.
Yeah, I think it was a python or a boa constrictor. It was just a big fat snake. So they knock down a wall, and they end up
hole in it.
They put a hole in the wall, and then they end up basically next to a plane.
We're talking about in this plane.
Yeah,
that's like again, like kind of lazy writing. Like they just end up through this hatch at the tomb. You say as well that tomb, it didn't look like it was buried under that much sand, really.
I think
they're digging like
the way they dug a whole day because they went in at 9 a.m., which is like they were like, oh, when does the map room hit the thing?
Wasn't the ceiling? The ceiling just looked like wood, to be honest.
It was supposed to be sandstone, I think, but so they spend basically a full day digging to get to it, and then they find the edges earlier on. So the fact that they come out right next to another guy. There's just a guy on the floor.
I think I remember that bit.
Oh, maybe it was Marion. It might have been Marion. She's like sat on the floor. I thought it was a German in my head. So like, then you get like this scene where the heroes might die because they're trying to get on a plane, and some big, clearly not German.
I think there's a moving mistake in that scene. You know when she's stuck in the plane because Marion gets in the plane, doesn't she? She gets stuck in the plane later after the fights because Indy's trying to get in the plane. He has a fight with this big guy. Faith gets splattered. Feel sad for that guy.
So I want to talk about the blood as well in a bit, but carry on.
And she gets stuck in this the
cockpit. The cockpit,
front seat of the plane. But then, as the plane's turning, one of the scenes she's not in the plane. There's just the guy in the plane. So I think that's a move mistake there. I don't know whether you spotted it.
I didn't spot it on the one that I was watching, but I know that the 2 points are supposed to be connected, so she might have gone between them to the turret at that point. We don't know the script, really. It would depend on what the script said to find out if it was a mistake or not. So while we're talking about the blood, I don't know if it's this one or if it's later on, they didn't want to make it too gory, so they used powder in like the squibs. So a squib is like a small explosive that fires blood out. They used, I think this might be in the truck scene later on, but
that's quite gory in a lot of scenes.
So the only red powder they had was cayenne pepper. They essentially pepper sprayed themselves because they were inhaling dust, blood, cayenne pepper. So that was like a nice like special effects thing. Like they didn't want to use blood, so they used a red powder. The only red powder they had on hand, cayenne pepper. So while we're on about the plane,
that's the one thing you pick up on. Out of everything, they used cayenne pepper to make the blood.
No, because I thought it was really interesting because they were on like a limited. They were just there for like however long, right? And they were on a limited time schedule, limited budget.
Right, with the plane as well, like. And the car scene later on, and all the scenes in this movie, like they're so good at building that tension. Like you're always wondering, like what's gonna happen. Like, so I'm gonna die here. Like, always like a MacGuffin.
Yeah.
In every scene.
So we should explain what a MacGuffin is to the younger audience who don't know film terms. So a MacGuffin, Okay, so a MacGuffin is a plot point that doesn't really matter, but is there to push forward the story. So in the Maltese Falcon, the MacGuffin is the Maltese Falcon. It's like a plot twist, but the plot twist is that it doesn't really matter. So,
like in that scene with the plane, you got the plane rotating, you got them having a fight. One of them gets splattered. Then you got the guy in the cockpit. You know, he ends up dying. She whacks him over the head with a boulder, doesn't she? And then she's stuck in the plane, and then she's shooting these guys in the truck who turn up.
Yep.
And then it's leaking on, and you're like, "Oh crap, what's going to happen here?" Then every single scene, you've got that like tension.
It leads to another scene. There's not a wasted scene in this movie. It's always one point leading to another, building tension, building plot, and that is
a lot of
something that films don't do much anymore.
In new movies, there's a lot of wasted scenes, and I feel like this one is the perfect popcorn blockbuster.
It's quite short as well, right? It's only an hour and 40 minutes. That is
I thoroughly enjoyed it. Like when I finished it, I was like, I could watch another one now. Like that was a really good film. It's sometimes films.
It's the shortest Indiana Jones as well. It's the shortest one. That one. Yeah. It's 1 hour 40 minutes, and the rest are like 2 hours 20 to 30, I think. So there are a lot.
Right balance.
Yeah, exactly. While they're on they steal back the Ark after the. Oh, hang on, I've missed an entire section. They escape the plane. The plane blows up. They all go to check out the big explosion.
Remember them escaping the plane. Remember them escaping the plane, and then suddenly they're on a truck. That's what I remember.
Well, there was like
one of the scenes there.
Yeah, I think you missed a scene. They did like their Egyptian fixer. I can't remember his name, but it's played by oh god, his name's gone out of my head. It doesn't matter. He's like the
really
fixer.
Jolly guy.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
Jolly guy. Yeah.
Who sings a lot. Yeah. So.
Thing is, like, there's a guy like that in the Mummy as well, isn't there? So again,
I think it might be the same guy. I can't really remember. It's been a while since I've... Because he's in other Indiana Jones films. So there's like an entire like discussion between them about like them moving it in a truck, which truck, and then now they're magically in a truck. After the horse, it's the horse scene. No. It's the horse scene, then the truck. So he goes, "How are we gonna get onto the truck? I don't know. I'm making this up as I go along." Steals a horse.
They just in the truck, and there's like a whole like platoon of enemies in the back.
Yeah.
Again, that's another showcase of how like, action-packed it is because you're on the edge of your seat again. Like you've got them kicking open doors, knocking the enemies off. Like that bike.
Well, you've missed the entire point. There's a scene where he's running across a hill on a horse, and he goes, and that is when the music kicks in, and you're like, "Oh, this is going to be good." When you hear the music.
I think the horse is actually based on the image.
Yeah.
And what inspired it, isn't it? The one that I pointed out earlier.
And it's like when that music kicks in, you're like, "Oh, it's about to get real," like.
That music's so good. That's cool.
It's really good. And so he's like chasing after these things. He rushes in front, he jumps onto the right van. The Ark's in the back. He gets shot in the arm at some point. It's crazy. So
he's been kicked off the back, and he kicked out the front, and he's holding onto the Mercedes logo, and it snaps up. You're like, oh god.
I mean,
he's only holding on to the Mercedes.
Harrison Ford has always done his own stunts, right? Most of the time. As long as they're not super dangerous, he will do them. So, let me just go back to the plane scene. He got his leg run over by the plane in one of the takes.
Yeah.
I
bet he broke his leg.
It was lucky he didn't. He tore his ligaments. The only reason he didn't break his leg was because it was so hot. It was so hot that the tyre sort of melted a little bit, so it just went over his leg without it doing too much damage.
I would have stunted production a lot, and
it didn't. It didn't, because he just put an ice pack on it and went on with the next scene because he's an absolute badass.
I'll make him like that these days.
The closest we've got nowadays is Tom Cruise, and that's the only reason he does it is because he has his own company, right?
Getting old though, isn't it? Like he broke his leg on the last shoot on the last Mission Impossible.
Yeah, and the only reason he's allowed to do those stunts is because he owns the production company now. It's his company.
Yeah, but it's going to get to a point where he's going to be like, I'm not going to do these stunts anymore.
Yeah, it's when he can't bounce back. Yeah, exactly.
Impossible 25.
So he's finally got the
Ark back. When he's in the truck as well. The Ark back. Well, let's get back to the truck scene because I feel like I missed a lot from the truck scene. That is such a...
You can talk about the truck scene. I'm not really... It's great. Go on.
Well, just like the first bit when he's in the truck and he sees all these enemies coming across him and he sees the 3 people on the bike and he just rams them off the side and he's like, it's the little laugh.
The good thing about it is that he does it like really subtly. So he's like,
yeah, it's so funny. He's like, oh, I know what to do here then. It's like he's playing a little video game.
Yeah, exactly that.
Then,
and that is
you got all the guys jumping in, kicking them off.
So that entire scene, I feel like, was reproduced in Uncharted. Because there is a scene where you're in a car and you've got to bash the cars out of the way, and that is a Hollywood staple now. Because I think it mainly came from this scene. So when he's dangling underneath the car, that is Harrison Ford. That is not his stunt double. He's being pulled along by a car, bruised ribs, cracked ribs.
Jesus Christ.
The only part that was the only part that was a stunt double in that was going from the front to the back, and they specifically altered the car so that it was a little bit raised up.
And then when the guy who to take him down, when he just flies under the wheel,
and
you just hear this doink,
and his legs out. That is comedic gold.
I just remember thinking about when I was watching that scene. Everything looks so realistic. In movies today, I feel like there's a lot of these scenes where they're filmed in the desert, but everything looks too shiny, too
They do a lot of gratuitous stuff. Yeah, exactly. They do a lot of gratuitous violence in new movies like that. They'll show
the blood and the scratches on the car. It looked realistic. It looked like you was back in 1936.
And the reason why it looks like that is because the cars were specifically designed by Coventry Custom Cars, and they based them off old stuff.
UK.
Yeah. I think so.
Harrison Ford's not British, is he? Or is he?
Who?
Ford British.
American.
He does seem British though, doesn't he? I don't know if he's done British accents in films before or something. I don't know.
I'm gonna have a Google. I'll have a Google right now and see if he is American. Let's talk some more about the cars. I mean the van scene.
So I think that's the last thing I wrote. So I'm just gonna let you carry on. Well, after that scene, we have. I didn't write much because I was so into the film. I was literally enjoying it so much.
Yeah.
At that point, I thought, you know what, I'm gonna lie in my bed and watch the rest of this because I was enjoying it. I watched it late last night. But after that scene, they arrive in the city, don't they? They're back in what's the city called, George?
Cairo.
And his friend's there, his jolly friend, who sets it all up. And they just go into this barn, and then they flip down the top. The market store comes out, and they all start dancing and singing and shouting.
It's so good.
Bustle and bustle. 5 minutes ago, it was all completely quiet. Just love that, the way they just transform the whole place. And then the Germans come in, they're like, oh, they must have gone. So just turn around, and they're all going, yay!
So the jolly guy, he's called Salis, but he's the person that plays him is John Rhys Davies.
A really good character. The thing is, all the way through, I thought, is this another guy that's going to betray Indy at the beginning? Then, as I got to the end, when you see him at the end, and he's just all Johnny's like, oh, da-doo, and he's singing, and he gets that kiss from Marion, that made me fall in love with that character. I thought, yeah, this guy's just a jolly guy.
You know why I recognise him, right? He plays Gimli in Lord of the Rings.
Really?
Yeah. That's cool.
In fact.
There you go, same character. He's in 271 films. This man has had a career.
Jesus Christ.
Jesus Christ, that's Jason Bourne. He's in Bloodsport. Bloodsport 3.
No, I feel like he's one of those actors where he's in every film, but you kind of know him, but you kind of you're not sure. You just recognise the face.
Yeah, exactly. So he's in Indiana Jones. He's in 2 Indiana Jones films. He's in Last Crusade as well.
So next we're on the boat scene and meet again another character where you think this character's a bit odd, and Indy gives
because he's a pirate,
right? Funny look.
Yeah, he's a pirate, isn't he?
Yeah. He's like, can I trust him?
Do you know who that guy is? While we're on the fact of characters that are in different films, he plays Kingsley Shacklebolt in Harry Potter. The pirate captain is a really well-known English actor, which you don't realise when you see.
After he sticks up for Indy out in the film and lets Indy hide and says he's not on the boat,
he's dead. I killed him.
You kind of start to like that character. There's a lot of characters in this film like that because at the start, Indy's been betrayed a couple of times by a couple of different people, and you're like, I like this guy. What's this guy going to be like? Is he going to betray him?
So there's an entire scene where he threatens to blow up the Ark with a RPG once they're on this secret island. Did you want to talk about him stealing the codes, the clothes? That's about in 2 minutes.
We're gonna go through the boat scenes because we're gonna get let's build it up. You're supposed to write down all these scenes, George. I feel like I'm doing the scenes.
I really have.
So we're on the boat. Mark's in the basement or whatever. It's doing some funky stuff. It's melting through the box. I don't know why that happened because it didn't really do anything after that.
It burnt off the Nazi flag, the swastika, because that was originally I think the swastika is a Hebrew symbol that they've inverted for the Nazi symbol. I think
it was weird because it didn't really do anything like that. But then he fell asleep, didn't he? And things start to like heat up. It's like, well, she's like, oh, where does it hurt? And he's like, oh, it doesn't hurt here.
I mean, the comedic effect, the mirror scene is one of my favourite things in any movie, where she's looking in the mirror and she spins it, and you just hear Indy's like getting clunked by the back of the mirror. That's one of my favourite scenes.
Ouch.
Well, it's not that. It's her looking around the corner, going, "What did you say?" Like,
he's already like bruised. His cut is like, he's proper beat up, and then
so
just whacks him around the face. and she's like, "What do you say?" It's the comedic scenes in this are perfectly balanced. Like, that's when you need a bit of comedy because you've had like a lot of action for like the past like 40 minutes. You just need that little bit of comedy before you get to the next line.
What that does is it takes you out of the action and lets you reset a little bit, and it lets you like take a break from the because movies now it's action, final action shot. Whereas with this, it's action, comedy, action, comedy, and it like paces the film in a way that is different
because you're with the characters, like you're having a breather, like they're having a breather, just sitting on the ship.
Like, so. Company. Poor old Indy falls asleep before hitting Mary and get it on, which is fair enough. Man's been running about. Man's been running about. He needs a nap.
Every time in this film, George, they're about to get it off and something goes down, like he falls asleep or they get attacked or get ambushed. And something happens.
That's something that then goes on to James Bond as well. Like, completely separate thread here. There is always a scene like this in a James Bond film, but there'll be like a bomb in a cake.
The hero always gets the girl.
Yeah.
The hero always gets the girl, but they only ever get him like after the movie or after all the crap's gone down, and then they get the girl.
Exactly. So, we're on the island. Somehow. I don't know how Indy managed to stay on a submarine. That's not explained. It doesn't seem like it goes underwater.
Let's touch the whole submarine, and then he's just in like the... What's it called? Like the top of the ship?
Yeah, he's just at the top, and like that doesn't get explained, and that is confusing.
The engine.
They didn't even show that scene in the one that, like, it. All I see in this one is him swimming to the submarine. He gets on top of the submarine, and then it cuts, and then he's in the secret island.
And then everyone on the boat's like, "Oh yeah!"
And they hit you with this the whoosh.
But let's talk about the fact that he, French guy. Takes Marion again, doesn't he? And
yes, he does. Saves her again. He just keeps saving her.
Oh, let me keep the girl. He's like, no matter what gold's in the box, I just want the girl because I should be worth some money. Where we heading? And he's like, no, I'm taking the girl.
Well, it's not that. It's
it's like
he saves Marion again because the Germans were going to kill her. If it hadn't have been him going, she's my prize. He saves
Marion, doesn't he? And I feel like if Indy would have died in this film or something after Indy, Marion would have ended up with him. I feel.
Yeah.
So I think would have happened.
They're like, oh, we should open the Ark now so we know that the stuff's in there. Do I keep jumping ahead? Did you want to talk
again? Cause
did you want to talk about him stealing the clothes?
Steals the clothes, master of disguise.
Doesn't fit him. The German guy, I think, says. Yeah. So do you know what he's? From what I read, like the general translation is
like parting up and he's doing his hair and stuff, and there's like, oh yeah, so that.
So no, do you know what it is? That's him going, "Hi, good morning. Did you have a nice sleep? You should get cleaned up so you look good in your court-martial." Which is a brilliant line. And then he just kicks him in the bollocks.
Thanks, bro.
He's like,
where'd he get that bazooka from? So the submarine, I assume.
When he's in the like convoy with them, he sneaks off into like the stockpile. It's the blue box that I think is supposed to be like their armament pile.
No, the pyro on the ship, didn't he like make a call to like British or American ships or something? Didn't we have a scene where it was like an American ship? I just imagine that.
You're imagining that. You're confusing different films.
Yeah, about the black uniform and the badges that are German. was a scene where there was a guy with a black uniform and someone like them up. Sure, George.
Not in the one that I watched, unless
Go
it's
back
a deleted scene.
It might have been, but I know he put a call out to someone. But he never went anywhere anyway, so he won't discuss that. But yeah, he's on this submarine, and the next thing you know, as you say, he's like, we should open the Ark. Wouldn't you like to know what's in there before you take it back to Germany or whatever?
Yeah, I mean,
it's like,
which is a completely like that absolutely makes sense in like a story-wise perspective. Like, you don't want to send this thing back and know that it's because at any point when the Germans don't have it, Indy could have swapped it with something else. Like,
it's like they don't know a thing about this thing. They just think it's going to give them like immortality or whatever. They didn't do any research on what it actually does. They're just like, oh yeah.
No one knows what it does. It's in the story at least.
But you know, Indy had a clue, didn't he? Because he looked through the book and he did his research and he's seen all these dead bodies and he's like, they open that, I'm not looking at what's inside there.
But he does until like the last second. He's like, oh, I should probably not look. So
no, I don't think it's last second. I feel like
he's looking at it. You see the wisps. You see a couple of wisps come up, and that's when he's like, "Oh, we shouldn't be looking at this." Yeah, dangerous. So he's there. They all start getting laser beamed, which is cool.
Talk about the bazooka first, George, because you're jumping ahead.
Well, so are you. This is your fault.
But he ends up in the desert. They're about to open the Ark. Well, they're walking with the Ark, and he's got this bazooka, and he's like,
"I'm gonna blow the Ark up."
He says, George, "I'm gonna blow it up," and then he's like,
"Go for it."
Marion in their arms again. Like, oh, we're gonna kill Marion then.
No, it wasn't even that he was gonna kill Marion. It's that him and Indy are basically the same person, right? Him and Belloc. They both want to see this thing opened. He doesn't want to destroy something that is a historical artifact.
No, it's like you got Luke and Darth Vader. You got Indy, you got Belloc, so it's like that It's like that common good cop, bad cop type of thing in the movie.
It's the hero anti-hero like combo. It's.
And then it's like, we all know you want to see what's in it as well. And I think Indy thought in his head like, I kind of know what happens if you open this up, so I'm going to let you do it. Whatever happens.
Whereas for me, it was more that he doesn't have a clue until like the last second. So for me, it was more, I do want to see what's in it. I do want to see what the deal is. Why? Maybe because he
kind of knew as well, didn't he, that Belloc was in charge. So he's like, he's not gonna kill us. He's just gonna keep us hostage.
In the Bible, which this entire thing is based on, it's supposed to have some magic stuff in there. It's supposed to have like a staff and mana. So if he's basing it off like what he thinks is it's got the commandments
when they actually open it and you don't see anything in there at all.
And it's just the sound of the German guy just laughing. The German guy loses his mind. Yeah. So, let's talk about the death scene. Because that is
the laser beam.
One of the most gruesome things I think I've seen in a long time. And it's really clever how they did it.
Film where it kills all the enemies in one flash. And then that's the end of the film. Like, it's like all the way through the film, there's been complicated scenes where the bad guys always win, and then this one, they're just all disappear in a flash. So and also, the movie cameras as well, the 1936 movie cameras, you see them like spark.
Explode, yeah, it's cool, isn't it?
So it's like the Ark doesn't want it to be recorded, like there's going to be no footage of this. Nothing's going to be left of this event.
Anyone that sees it has to go, kind of thing. So
because you can't see it because it's not supposed to be seen.
Yeah, it's not supposed to be seen. It's not supposed to be touched, etc., etc. So one guy has his face melt. The most gruesome thing I've ever seen.
Mm-hmm.
One guy,
I
do as well.
I actually love that.
I'll explain how that's done in a minute as well. That's a practical effect. It's so good,
wasn't it?
I'll tell. We can go, but we can talk about that in a moment. We got to talk some more about the film.
Down, the score's just there.
Shut up! Shush! We're moving on to that in a moment. One guy's head shrinks.
We see all the souls come out, and we see these blinding flashes, which is a laser.
And it does the Lord of the Rings thing, where it's It's like beautiful, beautiful demon. Like that is what.
They're like, oh, it's so beautiful, and
So
then next
beautiful.
thing you know, I
So
I thought that like America's going to turn into some evil demon. To be honest, no, I've watched this movie before. He's standing right in front, directly in front of it. He's said some words to summon it. Like, is he going to turn into some crazy like demon?
So do you know what the German guy says? Right, he says, "I don't like these Hebrew rituals." That is the only point in the film that Nazis hate Jews or their like animosity to Jewish people is mentioned. They added that last minute because they realised there was no these Nazis are bad people kind of thing.
Isn't that arc something to do with Hebrew culture? Like, why would they even want that in the first place? Wouldn't they just like destroy it there?
No, because they want the power that it gives. In real life, Hitler was like this. Hitler was obsessed with the occult. He was looking for the Ark of the Covenant. He was actually looking for the Holy Grail.
So it actually existed then?
It didn't exist. Well, not in a... What it is existed in folklore.
No, it's basically like a myth, isn't it? Like,
yeah. Like the Holy Grail. Like... Yeah, exactly. Like the Holy Grail. Like... the Ark of the Covenant. In real life, Hitler was looking for these things. So, in our universe, he cared about the occult because he thought it would give him the edge in the wars. So, it's interesting that they decided to do that. So, one's head melts, one's explodes, and one shrinks. And they had to put the flame over the front of the guy's head exploding. Because if they hadn't have done that, it would have been rated an R movie.
I think their souls went into the box, didn't they? So if that ever gets reopened up, souls are going to be in there.
Yeah, exactly. I think so. It like absorbed them.
You know what I love though? I love the way the box sealed itself up. Like I just love that. Like that's what I remember. Like you would expect me to go and like have his eyes closed and go and put the lid on. It just does it itself. And it's sealed, and then there you go. Everything's like fine.
Yeah, and then they put it.
And then it's just like
Then they put it into the warehouse, which you see in Crystal Skull. Like that warehouse is.
That's what I was thinking. At the end of that scene, I was like, "This is giving me Crystal Skull vibes."
Because
how many freaking artifacts, many arcs and crystal skulls and random artifacts are they having that freaking warehouse? You can see how big it is.
Yeah,
I feel like that is a bit like. Ridiculous. I feel like I should have just had like a small.
Well, no, because you've got to imagine in every culture there is like a relic of like power, right? For the Brits, it's the sword and the stone. For Hebrews, it is the ark.
The ark?
Yeah,
I mean, there's obviously the mantle or the. That's what I was thinking. Like, do you get a little
one of the boxes gets broken and you see into it in Crystal Skull. So let's talk about that scene about the guy's face melting. So it is a cast of his face in alginate that they then alginate, which is
what they use for leaf molds in dentistry.
Yeah, it's
we've actually used it
a one-part mold.
Some at uni. We've used that to mold people's faces.
Yeah, and it's a horrible experience. Well, I'm going to explain to you.
Because you can't give
they then sculpted it because it's a negative mold, right? So that
scene is so like. What do you call it? So over the top when you see face. That's the funny.
But you never will forget that after you see that. You will always remember that about this film.
So though, isn't it? The same. As a kid, that would scare the hell out of you.
Oh, it absolutely did. I didn't sleep for a little bit because of that. Like, so the way
I just laughed. I actually sat there laughing.
So it's a negative mold, right? And then in the mold, they paint really thin layers of coloured ballistics gel, which is the stuff they use to test bullets and stuff. Hang on, I've written it down. Sorry, I was really interested in it. So.
Gone on for an hour.
I know, it's crazy, isn't it?
We're not answering the chat, by the way, guys. We're trying to make this like We don't want to answer the chat too much in these podcasts, especially ones that are movie based, because we're trying to make the movie the focal point. So we might say like hi in the chat, but we're not going to like the chat all the way through. Although we might have questions at the end. Say if this podcast is up for a couple of years and it gets more traction, and we're just sitting there talking to everyone in chat, it's going to be a bit weird. So that's why.
So
no, we don't
going from the inside out of this face, it is a stone skull carved in stone for like the inner mold.
Skull carved in stone. I mean, you have to like reiterate that.
Listen, alright. The reason they made it out of stone is because they had to withstand such high heat, which I'll explain why that's a thing in a minute. So it's a skull with thin layers of gelatin, and then they put blue yarn to mimic veins, and they then took it out of the mold, and they put it between two propane heaters.
So much fun making the skulls in this movie.
That melted the ballistics gel, because the guy made a special mix. The
way it's just so runny, and all you can see is the pupils of the eyes. Like,
so like that's how it happened. They didn't do any CGI to that, because CGI was like relatively new back then. It was matte paintings on green screens.
It might not have worked. Like, how many times did they test that to make sure it worked? Because when you're doing things with alginate and and experimental gear, like, we know as artists that doesn't always work. Like, how many tests did they have to do to make that?
Well, the alginate is only a mold. They like threw the alginate away afterwards. Like, that's not important. It's the thing that came out of the mold that mattered, and it was really thin ballistics gel that melted at a low temperature, which is two propane things blasting it off screen. So that entire,
because I can't imagine they would have done that in the 80s.
They didn't. This was the first time it was ever done on film. So the guy like specifically mixed up a batch of ballistics gel that was really thin and really like easy to destroy. The entire process of it melting took 20 minutes.
What do you throw on this?
I really enjoyed this. I did. I really like special effects. Special effects is one of my like favorite things to look at. So it's like 10 minutes, and they sped it up
with the special effects of the explosions and stuff. It's one of the like receptionists from Lucasfilm. I'm not interested.
Okay, I'm done with all my notes, but like that entire like ILM really pushed the boundaries for special effects. Before that, they were kind of awful, but ILM helped with Star Wars. They helped with this film. They've done a lot of stuff since, and they put like a lot of the things people still use in VFX now came from them. They were the precursors. They did all this stuff on computers that took years or like months to do scenes and stuff.
Like, some of those special effects are still picked today over CG.
Oh yeah, like practical effects should always be enhanced by CG. It should never just be a CG thing in space, because you'll see, unless they're really like professionals, that it's almost impossible to get it to look right, especially with characters that don't exist. Which is why when Lord of the Rings rocked about in 2001-ish, 2000s, hey Panda, in 2000s, they, instead of doing like the tennis ball on the stick, which is a thing that they do in other films, they had people act out these characters. Andy Serkis, from Gollum to the monkeys in Planet of the Apes. He is one of the best motion capture actors because he will act out the scene with people there. Like there's footage of him nearly killing himself in a stream. Yeah.
So imagining people being there.
Yeah, which is really difficult, especially for kids. Like imagine like you're a child actor and you have to look at nothing and act like there's something there, which is where the entire like tennis ball was there, so you get the eye.
That's a milestone for that.
Yeah, so that's what they did. That's what they do the tennis balls for.
And then
it's because it's TV and they don't have time or the budget. They have a tennis ball on a stick to gauge the eye line, and then you react to a tennis ball, which impossible.
Be a really good actor to make that like realistic.
Yeah, so I mean, a lot of like they pioneered. a lot of like special effects that are still used. And my brain went dead for a second. Don't worry about it.
Oh, we forgot to do, George, which we have to do, and you've skipped ahead again. We've not talked about the end of the movie.
Yeah, we have.
Because you've gone on to the special effects rant.
No, we have. We talked about the warehouse. Warehouse is the end of the film.
But you've skipped some stuff out that I really liked. Some of my favourite scenes. Firstly, we're on the boat. Oh, the art goes back on the boat, yeah, before the warehouse. And then we have that guy you mentioned earlier. He's really jolly. You know, kisses Mary like, hey, oh, yeah.
No, that's before. That was before. That wasn't. That was.
And then see Indy, the agent who set him up on the mission. He walks out of there, and he finally gets to go. You know, he gets Marion on his arm, and he says, "Oh, they got no idea what they're dealing with." Because he's like, "What are you gonna do with this arc?" He's like, "You really don't know its power. You don't know what it's capable of." And they're just like, "Oh, don't worry, we got it somewhere safe. No worries."
In a warehouse.
You really don't know what you've got. And
So
as he leaves there, he says that to me.
With this warehouse.
The thing is, he was under the impression that it would go to a museum.
Yeah, which is why he wasn't happy about it.
And again, I feel like it is better placed where that people might not find it until like 2013 when the Crystal Skull comes out, rather than in a museum where someone might touch it and it might just, you know, fling open and kill everyone.
I mean, the thing is, prior to all of this, like when he didn't believe in the occult.
The museums went to back in uni. Imagine if that happened. One of the artifacts just started like sucking everybody in.
That's all I think about when I'm in museums is the stuff coming to life, and that is mainly because of Night at the Museum 1, Night at the Museum 2, and The Mummy. Those are all things that have like altered my perception on like real life a little bit, you know.
It would have been nice to see it in the museum, though. It would have been nice to see it in like a glass case presented, because that's what Indy set out to do, isn't it? So
yeah, but that was before the occult stuff. That was before he knew it had powers, and that was before all of this other stuff.
I think he wanted it like locked away somewhere more secured in there.
Maybe, yeah, or not to them, because I think he thought they wanted it for war against the Nazis, which is kind of what they like push as the narrative, I think, a little bit. Because they're
I need to go back and watch the Crystal Skull. Like, a lot of the things in this movie, as you say,
tie into Crystal Skull.
That film.
Yeah, and not even just this.
And also,
in a lot of
Marion have a kid, don't they?
Shia LaBeouf, actual cannibal Shia LaBeouf.
Quite like this.
Yeah, but I mean, it's big shoes to fill, innit, really.
All I remember from Crystal Skull is the Crystal Skull, Shia LaBeouf,
and the hat rolling towards him. Indy in the fridge is my favourite thing.
It's literally the classic thing, isn't it, where they say like, "Oh, you can escape a nuclear war," and one of those old fridges, like it was the old saying. They used to say they was indestructible.
Yeah, right. I'm done with all my notes.
If anyone could do it, Shia LaBeouf would be a really good choice.
Yeah, I mean, he had that meltdown, didn't he, when a little bit ago? So maybe he's come back around to being a celebrity again.
Hope that when they're doing Indiana Jones 5, hope that Shia LaBeouf's in it. Hope they don't cut his character out. They probably will, knowing Indiana Jones.
Well, if they do, they'll just cast someone else.
Does have a way of piecing the universe together though as well. So it normally references it in a couple of films later. But I don't think there's going to be many more unless they do pick another actor, because, you know, surely number 5 has to be Harrison Ford's last one. I mean, he's getting on there. Unless they do another one in a couple of years. That's
they did the Young Indies, right? Where it was the kid
young Indiana Jones. I don't think I've seen him.
I've not either, but I've seen the only bits I've seen of it are from the start of the VHS to Temple of Doom. Do I mean Temple of Doom?
I think you can get them now. They're quite rare. I don't know. Oh, I've got some cool facts.
I've got a couple of Easter eggs. Harrison Ford is nearly 80. He's 78.
An Easter egg? I don't know if that's an Easter egg, George.
No, that's just his age. That's his age, sorry. So, C-3PO and R2-D2 are in scenes of this. In particular, on the Ark. Yeah, there are little bits of them on the Ark, and there's... See you later, Nick. Sorry, I'm not ignoring you. We're just doing the podcast, man. Sorry. So they're on the ark and they're also in the background to some of the scenes, like on the walls and
Get
stuff.
some questions in a bit, guys, and you can give us some, some of your thoughts and feelings about Indiana Jones, Rise of the Lost Ark. I'm good.
The World of Souls also had R2D2 and C3PO, as well as the number those like C3PO and R2D2. The letters and numbers are on the plane as well.
Let's call this section the "Did you know" section.
Did you know?
Oh, did you know? Indy was born in Hawaii. Didn't know that.
Oh, I didn't know
now
that.
I know it, actually. I like his character even more. I think that just makes him even better as a character.
Good night, Nick. Have a nice sleep.
Like,
yeah.
I'm gonna get it. Like, it's no clothes that he wears and the way he dresses.
Well, the way that he dresses is based off another character.
I don't know where I'm going with it, but I kind of do imagine him being from Hawaii. I don't know why I imagine it. I think it's because he's so tanned in the film, but
yeah,
it's basically where the film is, really. Then I've got, did you know, many of the set pieces were made in miniatures during pre-production?
Yeah,
because we've been talking about special effects for the whole time.
Well, a lot of, I mean, especially back then, specifically ILM, yet again, they're being dragged back into the discussion.
The car scenes, obviously, the models in the pyramid, all that stuff were all like miniatures, but also mashed together with like real scenes.
Yeah, so it's the it's the perfect combination of it's the same with Star Wars. All of the ships are miniatures that are on a, I wouldn't say green screen, but so they used to use luminosity as a way to discuss
that,
old school. Yeah,
it was models like that. Realistic. It's so difficult, especially back then with that.
Back then it was even worse because the cameras were okay, like the quality was okay, like you wouldn't.
But then again, maybe that helped because the camera only picked up so much detail.
Well, it's not even that. It's they had to do matte paintings for a lot of the stuff. So a lot of, instead of doing CGI or green screen, it would be painted backgrounds. The way that they used to do green screen was they'd take the film, because it had to be, it was old school film. They'd take this I think it's the luminosity scale or something, and they'd get rid of colours of a certain scale, but then they'd paint onto layers of film as well. So they had to do it all by hand, which is fucking incredible. That is my F-bomb.
So the first shots, we've already discussed this, but they were inspired by Spielberg's early days in filmmaking. We've discussed that. I didn't
let's also throw back to the weeds in a couple of the scenes were taken directly from Endor, the set of Endor. Like, because it's the same production company and the same company, they can just yoink bits of the sets. Also, let's talk about one more. I've got one more. The U-boat. They borrowed from the stage for Das Boot, the war film, but they didn't tell the people of Das Boot. It's a really famous war film. They didn't tell them they were borrowing the U-boat, but they hired it from the production company and they took it, and they came back to film another scene of Das Boot and the boat had gone because they'd borrowed it.
Hilarious. What have I got next? I've got the bit about the boulder, which we've discussed.
Mm-hmm.
And then, I've got the bit about the snakes only having 2,000, then they had 10,000. And then I have all the crew got sick. Discussed that. And then, the mountain face was made by
Casting.
Yeah. That's then stuff they use for teeth, dentists. We discussed that in really good detail, so we won't go into that. And then obviously, as we discussed again, the whole crew got sick. Apart from the director, Spielberg, because he only drank bottled water and
cans of spaghetti hoops. I've got a question from chat. Is this going to be a weekly thing? Because it's really funny.
It could be a weekly thing. I'm interested.
We do.
If we can't get
Nick, we normally do podcasts. We do weekly podcasts. Whether it's going to be a film thing,
so we're going to
we don't know.
Chat now.
If anyone's in chat.
Question for you guys: have you actually watched Indiana Jones, and what did you think of it? Do you have anything to add? Any cool facts? Anything like that? What kind of ones would you like to see next? I've got all the other indie films.
Yeah, but do we want to stick with indie, or do you have a film suggestion for us, chat, that we can look into?
We'll come back to it. But I think next we have to pick something different. Something different every week, but maybe like 5 weeks' time we come back to indie or something. I don't know. I've actually really enjoyed doing this week because it gave us some substance to talk about.
Yeah.
I feel like some of the podcasts we kind of rambled on, which is also good sometimes. Not all the time, because me and George will get bored. Stops us from getting bored. I did want to get Benji on, but I kind of didn't want to bother him because last week I messaged him a lot and he didn't really reply. So I don't know whether he's wants. I don't know.
I mean, the problem is we need sometimes you just need to take a break from streaming from social networks. Watch your Wes Anderson film.
These podcasts, I think what people like most is just me and you rambling. I don't know what it is. Like everyone's told me I love the podcast. My brother said it. Abby said it. Even Rocky watches them at work. Rocky, if you're watching this, shout out to you, man. Let me know in the comments if you're watching this one at work. But yeah, what kind of film do you like? I'm thinking let's start with like the original Star Wars with the Lord of the Rings. Like I've got them on DVD.
Lord of the Rings is a great one because they really pushed the boundary for effects.
We're going to do one of these this week, or we're going to do something different.
It depends. I don't mind. I'm happy just doing film nights. I find them interesting.
Could do a game podcast.
Could do.
I would play a game. We got to play it fully though. We kind of do that, don't we?
We could do. I'll tell you what we could do. We could do a podcast while playing Monopoly because we still got to play that.
Oh, George, we'll play that some other time. What other movies could we do? We'll have to
suggestions from Ghost and Nick. Watch a Wes Anderson film, or watch Men in Black. Men in Black is kind of.
I've not got.
Is
that on your chat?
Yeah. So the problem about Men in Black, they didn't really push the boundary for much. Like, it's a great film and a great franchise, but I like to talk about things that have influenced. What
about next week we do the latest Star Wars?
Could do.
Should we start from the beginning? I don't know.
Well, if we start from the beginning, we're basically talking about ILM again. Because they did all the special effects. I love ILM. They're so good. I mean, we could do Lord of the Rings, which is Peter Jackson and Weta Workshop.
Lord of the Rings. It's just too much.
Yeah, but Weta Workshops is one of the best production.
Just making the film based on the special effects.
Yes, I really love visual effects.
Wallace and Gromit. You want to talk about special effects?
Urban animations. I mean, we could do. That is some of the hardest stuff to do.
The original Tomb Raider film, George.
That's awful. That's awful.
That's why no one else is talking about him. I admit though, George, Angelina Jolie in those films, she looks hot, man.
Peng. What Wes Anderson film, Ghost? Have you got a suggestion?
Tomb Raider films are so much better than the latest one. I couldn't get into the latest one. It just didn't do it. I don't know what it is.
What if we did a Resident Evil, like a horror? Resident Evil.
Joined at the right time.
Hi, Abby. We could do a Resident Evil. Those are pretty boundary pushing for the genre of zombies.
I really want like a really like cult classic film.
You want to do? We could do Breakfast Club or Karate Kid or Pulp Fiction or.
I think I enjoyed the Karate Kid because you know that is my favourite film, and I know what we can do for the thumbnail as well. We can have Mr. Miyagi and Danielson. We can turn our film into that, you know, with the hat.
Grand Budapest
on the front.
Yeah.
The front, George.
Maybe. We'll have to have a discussion about. Don't know. Just choose for yourself. Why don't we discuss the Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2019? Do you know what we could discuss? The Assassin's Creed film, because that is both of the things we're interested in.
I feel like this week, we're both interested in it, but this was definitely. I picked this for you because I know that you're such a big indie fan. How much you love Indiana Jones, George? So you got to give me Karate Kid.
I'll give you Karate Kid, yeah.
All right. Next week, guys, we'll do Karate Kid. That's done. I've got the movies like 7 times. I've got it on Blu-ray. I've got Blu-ray Steelbook. I've got 1, 2, and 3 box set, and I've got box set again. Then I got the Cobra Kai's, and I got the latest film twice as well. So I'm really into Karate Kid. So it's on my list of films I have to scratch off, but I've already watched it like 7 times since then, so I can.
The Assassin's Creed movie. We'll do the Assassin's Creed movie the week after then, because I recently rewatched it. So it's on Netflix.
Because I got into Assassin's Creed games. When I first watched it, I wasn't into the games, so I wasn't that into the film really. Like I enjoyed it; it was like a popcorn movie, but I didn't really get it.
Yeah, it's kind of tricky when you they don't do a lot of backstory, which is kind of like a. I mean, in a lot of films, you'll see stuff that you've seen before. Like, yeah,
it is made for the fans, though, isn't it? Oh, it is made for the fans.
It's a really good film, and I really enjoyed it.
They do try and also put in like. The regular viewers, but I feel like for me, not playing the game, I just couldn't get it. When I rewatched it, I really enjoyed it. I loved it because I played through the whole of Assassin's Creed 2 and I was invested in the characters, the story.
Do you know what we could do? Pirates of the Caribbean, the first one, the best one.
So what we'll do is we'll do a couple of films and then in like 5 to 10 weeks we'll come back to Indy. We'll try and complete the Indy saga, and then one podcast we'll talk about Indiana Jones 5. But next week, George, we've dealt on this whole Karate Kid, man.
Okay.
Plus we can talk about Cobra Kai, because Cobra Kai and Karate Kid is really big right now, and they've literally blew me away with Cobra Kai season 3. So hopefully one day we can build up to that.
Nick, if you're still here, the only way to get on the blackboard is to donate. But
you have a shave. Like a week or 2 ago. It was like last week. I don't know. I can't even remember.
Whereas I had a shave. I had a shave today. As you can tell
we need to know about Phil. Our appearance. I've really enjoyed this podcast today, actually. But I've enjoyed it every week. After last week, I was like, where do we go from here?
Yeah.
That's why the other day I come up to George and I was like, George, I'm going to base it on movies, man. And it was literally like yesterday, the day before yesterday.
Yeah, it was, yeah.
We'll tomorrow then.
Yeah, well, I mean, you're taking too long to see messages, yeah. We were doing podcasts.
We're doing podcasts. I've been trying not to have too many messages because people watch these after the fact. So Rocky's probably sitting there at work watching these. I know for a fact he watches them work, so I don't want to be like, oh, hey, 2027.
Hey, Big Donger 69, welcome to the stream.
We haven't talked about the thumbnail. Should we try and do one of these comedy thumbnails every movie night?
Can do. I've literally I've got the stuff working.
The thumbnail I made it so bad because I didn't even sync the face properly. I just smudged around it to put.
I mean, honestly, that's funnier than mine. Like I spent a lot of time trying to get it right, and then I just added a filter that darkened my skin tone a little bit, and that was fine by me.
I've got the better side of the deal there because I'm the precious. Yeah.
You're like the Easter egg. You're a Cadbury's Easter egg. And I'm trying to swap it for a couple of bits of sand.
Rolled onto a stone plane.
That's such a good scene.
If anyone looked at what you're doing that thumbnail. I love the way your head kind of tilts into the freaking hat, man. It's so funny.
Oh, I quite into it. I fully spent about 10 minutes getting their head to the right size and shape.
I put that on the Instagram as well as a little promotion. Something like that every week.
It's like a full I posed for that picture and everything. It was so good.
Much better on the Instagram. If you look at the Instagram, it works so well.
Oh,
like a filter.
Yeah, well, the thing is, I took a selfie of it and I tried to match the angle and I tried to, I made it too big because if you were to take the head away, the head is tiny compared to it.
I can't believe you took a picture to match it. I thought that was no Facebook picture. I just literally cropped down my head on a Facebook picture.
I didn't have a picture of that angle, so I just took one.
Yeah, but anyway, guys, I hope you've enjoyed it. It's movie night tonight. I don't want to get too much into random comments because we want to make it centrally about the film. So if you have anything to add about Indiana Jones, then get it in the comments.
Then
we will talk about Indiana Jones 5, but possibly in a different 1 because it's just Indiana Jones 1. But I feel like we've covered quite a lot today. I feel like we've got into some proper movie stuff. I mean, George has gone on a proper rant about...
I love special effects!
Yeah. I feel like that's the most meaty bit of the podcast. George just sitting there for 20 minutes talking about the really alginate face.
I know. The thing is, I like
that whole
practical effects.
Sitting there, like, George just ignored the whole ending of the freaking film, and he's just gone on a rant about the melting face.
Listen, okay, that was one of the most shocking, like, special effects things that I've ever seen.
Tell you what, TJ, now you've got all this cool stuff about Indiana Jones. Why don't you go and watch it? Maybe these movie podcasts can inspire.
It's on Amazon Prime right now. All 4 of them are, actually.
I think Karate Kid's on Amazon Prime as well, so even though I have the DVD like 14 times, do an Amazon watch party, and maybe we'll send the link out to you guys if you're interested, if you want to watch it with us.
But the problem with that is we're going to be pausing it and talking about stuff in the chat anyway, like, or on call.
Oh, you've enjoyed it anyway. If you missed any of our podcasts, some weeks we might just do random, unscripted ones. You know, they're quite funny, but some weeks we'll do movie nights.
We've done games, we've done guests, we've had...
I do like watching these back, and I know in a couple of years I'll be watching this back probably, just laughing my head off.
Yeah, how bad our setup is.
Well, yeah, we'll probably have a much better setup by then. I kind of like it. I kind of like the way I've set it up and set it out.
Well, you've made me really, like, small. What you've done, instead of cropping me, you've smushed me down like this.
I think you look exactly the same, George, to be honest. What I was saying is, next week we're going to do Karate Kid, and yeah, we'll just mix it up a bit.
Mm-hmm.
Some weeks we might have guests. We're just going to talk about different stuff every week.
We might even do game franchises at some point, because we've got to talk about some of the Call of Duty stuff and the Assassin's Creed stuff. Like,
I hope you enjoyed it, guys. Have you got anything else to say, George? Cameron?
Nah, that's it. Maybe we'll do Pirates of the Caribbean at some point. That's all. Bye. Bye, stream. Love you.
Well, we're gonna end it here, guys. Try to keep rambling on, and yeah, have an awesome night or day, wherever you're watching from. And me and George will catch you next week. We'll be back tomorrow with
another episode of the podcast, which has no name because I've not actually set a name for mine yet. Yours is still Shedcast.
Every week.
Yeah, I know. This one was
gonna say
cool. Yeah, I need to figure a name. Bye, stream.
I'm offline.